What's up, everybody? Hope you're doing well. Today I want to show you how you can kind of unpack the drums from a really elaborate template and really just get things to cut through a bit more and get bigger kicks and get some stuff to happen. This is the groove I have so far. Honestly, sounds pretty good. It sounds competitive. Like a lot of things that I received to mix, like I don't have a lot of bad things to say about it. Like it feels good. It feels commercial. Like this could be released. This is great. I think there's potential to get more push, to physically allow more transient from the kick to push and move the speaker cones. I want to feel that. It feels very contained and parked into place, and it's pushed back for me. So even though the tone and everything is nice and knocking, like technically this kick is knocking, it's not allowing enough low-end transient energy to push through. And I think the reason for that is I think the output of this kick appears to be going to something called C drums. So here's our C drums bus. There's like a Shadow Hills mastering compressor, compressing quite a bit, and then feeding some R bass, feeding a gate. I don't even know why that's there. Feeding black box for some saturation, then a little transient design. But there's also this aux track for this channel that has a bunch of these NLS buses just feeding into each other. This is a Jason Joshua thing, and then cutting a bunch of low end. Okay, that's all cool. And then all of that is feeding another one called Drums and Bass M, which has a standard clip. And important to note that the 808 is also feeding into that track. So this is just an example, you guys, but I see this stuff happening a lot, and there's nothing wrong with this. This achieves really, really usable results, and it's a way to get the mix grinding and get some vibe. And really, ultimately, if you're able to, really park everything into place like that, you can really get this loud and make a really loud, nice, competitive mix, and that's really cool. Problem for me right off the bat is I want the kick to be a little more alive and speak, and so let's just try turning up the volume of the kick that they have. Yeah, and it doesn't really allow me to get there. And, I could cut some lows to try to get more, or I could boost it, but I'm getting all the mid-range knock. That is very present, but I'm not getting the movement in the low end. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and mute that kick. We're going to be able to refer back to that original kick. We're going to call this kick new. We're going to use the exact same sound. We're going to send it right to the master output. I'm going to quickly just hit play and just get a sense of the volume. I'm going to position it in the mix just using the volume fader. And for this stage of the game, I'm usually monitor pretty low, but when I'm trying to get a feel for the low end and a feel for where the kick should be, I turn the beat up way, way, way high. So I'm going to turn up my monitors right now. All right, cool. Yeah, it's not EQ'd quite right. We need to get in and process this thing a little bit, but right off the bat, let's just do a very, very quick comparison of the OG kick versus the new kick. Here is what we have now. The new kick is immediate. There's so much urgency. It's right in your face. There's no limit to how high you can get it. But you may say, well, the other one had grind. The other one had saturation. The way it was before was like breaking up. It had character. And I'm here to tell you that we can get that, and we can reimpose some of the character into this new kick without sacrificing and compromising the transient, right? So, I think first things first, I would add a little bit of EQ. I'll turn the monitors back down so I can really hear the kick. There's kind of a mid area like thing going on. Cut a little bit of that out. One of my other favorites for just getting a little bit of drive to a kick is the the Omega tweak. Really cool. A lot of you know from watching my channel, split EQs, how I'm like generally just getting kicks to move air. I'm gonna turn up the volume and just push the attack bands around until I'm just like feeling like I'm getting more of that big speaker intensity. All right. And then you might say, man, it still doesn't have that saturated vibe of the original kick. Let's hear that original kick. You'll say like, man, it's too clean. Like, it has the power, sure, but you know, an artist a lot of the time would be used to hearing it that other way, and they'd say the kick is a little too clean. Sure, it's punchy, it's knocky, but it doesn't have that character of like a speaker overloading. And Spectre's great for just blending in these types of sounds. Like, I would go right for a rectify and just, you know, reach around with the band while you're listening. Give it a good old reach around and just see if you can manipulate and sort of inject that blown up sound into the kick. Like aggressive mode, just really exaggerated to hear this thing. It's not really a fair fight now. The new kick is quite a bit louder, so I'm going to just tuck that kick in. We're going to try to get a similar level to what we had. None of that's working great. Let's try like Saturn 2. Let's try to get... All right, let's try Saturn 2. Start from right there. Let's try Saturn 2. Let's go like gentle saturation. Let's hear it just... If you want to blend some of that in, you could take the mix knob of Saturn, go back. Me personally, I would just keep it clean. I'd keep it wide open. I'd go for a little more of that. None of it. I don't need to compare to what we had before. Been scenarios in the past too where I even just keep a bit of their kick going and then just blend in some of the transient of like the raw new kick that I want that's just routed to the output, right? So let's just keep what they had and let's just blend in some of the new kick. The only thing is for me, it does introduce some phase. Like I'm not sure if it's like a time delay situation. I don't know that we ever really need an explanation for why something is doing something, but it's making the kick sound a little bit funky to me. And if we blend these in soloed, I think you'll hear what I'm talking. You can hear it right there, some phase shift happening. So personally, I would just prefer the new kick. Yeah, man, it just works. So, you know, there is definitely a downside to this. This is a really transient forward approach, so there are some downsides. Like we're really eating up quite a bit of headroom, like really allowing the kick to, I mean, if you look at that master, we're allowing that kick to really take up a lot of space. If you look at the headroom of the master with the old version, but the thing is, man, like I'm not incredibly worried about the potential for loudness. In this scenario, I just want to go for what's going to sound the best. Granted, there are scenarios where you're doing a mix off, or you know, you're doing a shootout maybe against another mixer or a few mixers, and they're all going to be turning in a loud product. And you know, yours might be 3 or 4 dB quieter because you know, you really wanted to, you didn't want to sacrifice headroom and dynamics. You wanted a punchier kick. So even though your mix sounds better, it's 3 or 4 dB quieter, you know, that mix might not stand up and be as presentable when the artist or the producer are going through and they're listening to the different mixes. In my scenario where I'm at these days, I've already been hired to do the mix. I'm gonna, you know, I want to put out the best sounding mix that's gonna sound best on streaming. Because if a version of the mix comes out with the kick that's really flat and doesn't necessarily move and doesn't physically push the speaker cones, and it isn't gonna be punchy on all sources, like, but it's way louder, like, I'm just not into that deal. I'm not into that. Like, I don't want to compromise dynamics just for the sake of it. And I've done it to win the game and to win shootouts, and it's really important to know how to do it. But I still think that we can get it there. So let's take a look at gain staging our master bus now with this extremely punchy kick. Let's see how loud we can get. I like to turn on auto gain on gold clip right away so I can just turn up and down the input and drive it as hard as I can without hearing changes in level. That can be deceiving. Now that's starting to clip a little bit, but feels. Over here, we're going to hit unity so we can do the same sort of dialing without the effect, without the change in level. Turn all that stuff off. And put our output back to 0. We're going to go into Pro L2. We're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to hit this little 1-to-1 button. Turn it up until it starts to sound bad. I'll do a little ozone right after that just to push a little bit further. Exact same thing. We're going to hit this little gain match button down here so we can just turn the threshold down till we really hear the flavor and the change of the tone happening. That again, we're going to reset our ceiling up to -0.1. Sometimes I'll just dial the master fader because that's your initial trim going into all of your master plugins. So sometimes I'll just start down at 0. Now I'm curious. Let's see where we're at with loudness. Let's find out where we are at, baby. -10, -11. That's really healthy, really punchy. That's a good level to go out. That means it's gonna translate really nicely at streaming. As long as your mastering engineer knows that you want to keep it that way and you want to retain the sound of the mix when it goes out to mastering, like you have an understanding like, yo, this was the dynamics level we agreed on. This is the sound of the record. We have all approved it to be like this, to be bouncy recordings. Because once it gets to Spotify, like, dude, we're not in the 16-bit CD era. So when I see these templates coming out from guys like Jason or like, you know, Serban style loudness, like whatever it is for these last gen mixers, it's like, cool, that's the format that they mixed for. You know, it was the loudness wars, it was iTunes sales, it was CDs, it was getting shit to just be as loud as possible. And dude, with streaming, it doesn't matter. Let's make the best sounding recording. Like that's my stance on that. And it disappoints me when you have to sacrifice that. You have to make compromises in sonics and compromises in quality just to get a couple extra dB. Because, like, man, who cares? So that's where I'm at. Let's hear this one more time of what we had before. Now let's make it a little more of a fair fight. Yeah, and the difference is that kick is bypassed. It's going all the way to the master output. So we're bypassing all of these buses and a mix bus that had frickin' the God particle. Like, I just don't want anything restraining the kick. You know, if I had Jesse Ray's perfect mix bus, it would be instruments and vocals all on a mix bus and then a completely separate output for the kick, where the kick can be left alone. It's not going to disturb the music. The music isn't going to disturb the kick. The kick can live alone, because in this style of music, you know, 808 is king, yes, but 808 needs to surrender and work around what the kick is doing. It just does. That's the vibe. That's the way. Scrotum of destiny. Yeah. All right, y'all. This was fun. See you next time. Peace.